I'm Dave Seymour. I'm 40 years old, and I've been sober 13 years. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You know, what I mean, when you say 13 years, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, wow, really? You know what I mean? Wow. My addiction for me, man, was like, I started using drugs when I was 7 years old. I became physically addicted to benzodiazepine by the time I was 9. My first overdose, I was 11 years old. And, I didn't know. If you were to ask me a question, about addiction or life or anything like that, I didn't know anything else. That's all I knew, and, for me, for me in those moments, it wasn't bad. I didn't know what good was, So, to really, look at my life now from being sober and looking back, it was terrible. It was horrible. To know that there is another way out, that there's another way out there, that there's something more. But to be a child and growing into that addiction and to that alcoholism and to the co-occurring disorders that I developed while growing as an alcoholic and an active addict, it's horrible. I couldn't believe the way that my life actually was. When I look back at it now, I'm like, damn, that's messed up, man. And so for me, my addiction was who I was at the time, but I learned that I could be something different, and bringing light to that and life to that is today. I became comfortable with the fact that, death was around the corner. Whether it was from an overdose, whether it was from somebody taking my life. Towards the end, I became so comfortable knowing that I was getting myself in a situation while inside that I wasn't going to take my own life, but I was putting myself in a position where people were going to take my life if I didn't stop doing what I was doing. But the crazy thing about it is I was okay with it. I was so miserable and just so beaten and defeated that, I felt that it'd be quieter, okay, no more shame, no more guilt, no more pain, no more chase, and it really felt like it'd be okay. And I made all the excuses in the world that I didn't have family, I didn't really have friends, my father passed away from alcoholism, I don't have anybody, so what's it gonna hurt? Who's it gonna hurt? It's not gonna hurt anybody, and I learned later on in life after I got sober that, it would have taken away from a lot of people because of what I've brought to the table through my own sobriety. If you'd have told me 13 years ago, hey, look, man, this is going to be your life, I'd have told you you're smoking crack and to break out. Because at the end of the day, man, there's no way. There was no way that a kid from the streets, a kid from, the South Side, that, was raised in the game and in drugs and in alcohol, and that's what he had embraced, that's what he had known, and become comfortable being that person, that there was a different life for you. There is a different life for you. I'm telling you, I promise you, if you get sober, there's going to be something different. Get out of here, man. There's no way. Not me. I'm just a junkie convict who nobody cares about. I'm a number now. That's it. And the dude who helped me get sober, he used to always tell me, his words for me is I will believe in you until you can believe in yourself. And I didn't believe in myself for a long time, through, the simplicity of when I got sober, he would tell me things like, it's okay, buddy. I was terrible at school. I could barely read. You know what I mean? I would read books, but I really wouldn't read books. I didn't understand them. I had reading comprehension problems, a lot of different things. And he would it's okay, bud. I'll help you. And I used to get so mad in the very beginning of getting sober and him helping me. And I used to say, why do you want to help me, man? Why? And he'd tell me, because helping you helps me. And I'm like, what does it help you with? You know, why does helping me help you? And he's like, that's the way it works, man. And I'm like, man, you know, and I'm in prison. I got this dude telling me, hey, you know what I mean? Like helping you helps me. And I'm thinking, oh, what do you really want from me? You know what I mean? Like, well, what are you trying to get out of me, man? Because you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, I'm not trusting you. And he's like, just helping you helps me, man. And you know, he helped me get my GED. I couldn't do multiplication. I couldn't do division. And he helped me study. And he's like, don't worry, bud, don't give up. And I failed. I took my GED test and I failed. You know what I mean? And I failed again. And I'm like, forget this. Well, who needs a GED? He's like, you need a GED. And he's like, just believe in yourself like I believe in you. And I'm right here, you know? And so, you know, I could have never imagined my life to be what it is today. You know, I could have never imagined that I would actually be sober and be what I consider to be a good person. You know, and it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks of me. It only matters about what I believe in me. And it took a long time to realize that. This person came into my life. We were on a level 4 prison yard, and we get 23 hours, you know, basically, you know, 22 to 23 hours in the cell a day. You get out for lunch and you get out for rec every other day, right? And so this guy comes on the run, really good guy, you know, and we start talking and everything else, and I'm in the game, man. I'm getting high, I'm drinking hooch, I'm doing everything that goes along with being in there. And there's this guy who's not. You know what I mean? He's doing his own thing. He's trying to help people. He becomes a teacher's aide. And, you know, he also used to tell me, like, hey, come work out with me, man. Why don't you come work out with me? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. You know, I'm good. And then, you know, fast forward, you know, 4 years later, you know, I'm in Oklahoma on another prison yard where Arizona has sent me, you know what I mean, out of the state to be in a different prison. And I'm in a meth-induced psychosis. And lo and behold, here's this guy, you know what I mean? The only person that I, in my mind at that moment in time, trust. And I'm like, this is the guy. I need help. And, you know, I basically ran up to him and I was like, hey, man, you know what I mean? Like, I need help. And at that point, like, I was actually in a psychosis that God had anointed me to go there to this prison yard and do harm to a bunch of people. And so he's like, listen, dude, you need to calm down. You know what I mean? You need to calm down. And so I go ahead, he tells me, go to your cell, man. I'll be there in a few minutes. I get to my cell, and I go to the cell, I put my bedroll down, and I strip down completely butt naked. I get completely butt naked, and I stand with my back against the wall, and I get ready to fight anybody who comes in. And so here came my new cellie and one other guy, and I took flight on these guys, butt naked. And they're like, what? You know, I get out in the middle of the run, and I'm yelling and screaming at everybody, and I'm like, ah! And here came Doug. And Doug's like, what are you doing, dude? And he pulls me in the cell, and he's like, listen, man, you know what I mean? Like, you need to calm down. And he gets me to calm down. He takes me for a walk. And that moment was not the defining moment. I got high again. A few days later, I have a mental breakdown of just how much of a piece of crap I felt like I was. And, you know, like, it all came like rushing in on me in the middle of a detox. I had no dope, I had no friends other than Doug, and I was alone. And I found dope, you know, but I went to Doug and I basically told him, like, hey, listen, I just feel like, you know, I'm worthless, man. You know what I mean? My dad died of alcoholism. I'm here in prison. He died alone. You know, the only man who ever loved me died alone because his son is a scumbag, you know, who's just in prison and left him, you know, and the only person he had. And, you know, all these different, you know, well, I guess the word I'm looking for is like self-fulfilling prophecies that I made about myself and who I was. And Doug's like, there's another way, man. You know what I mean? There's something else, man, and there's another way. And I didn't get sober at that time, but fast forward a couple of weeks, and Doug basically came into a situation and offered me to go to a meeting, you know, and At that time, I completely in my mind cast away every bit of like thought, and I'm like, a meeting? What's a meeting going to do for me? Is it going to get me right? Is it going to get me? Is it going to pay my bills? What's it going to do for me? And he said, it could change your life. It could, if you're willing to. And so he said, listen, if you want to come with me, I'm down in the education hall. And I didn't, I just didn't, at that time, man, I didn't comprehend everything, but I believe that my dad was standing there with God, and he said, listen, give my kid a kick in the ass one more time, would you? And for some reason, I got up, threw my poker chips on the table, and I went to a meeting. And at that moment in time, I started to hear things that I could identify with and that I understood, but that I continued to tell people throughout my entire life, you don't understand me. You don't understand me. Well, here's a group of people who understand me. I can no longer say that. I can no longer hide in the shadows and be a victim. I now have to take control and be in charge and make the decision to change my life. And that is when I made that decision, that this is what I'm going to do. I think that in order for you to identify with somebody else and not feel like you're completely alone is one of the largest components to recovery and living. I mean, humans crave, other companionship. We weren't created to be alone. You know what I mean? We weren't. And so I think that, that was really one of the saving graces for me, was another convict saying, hey, check it out, bro. At the end of the day, you're really full of shit, and here's the bottom line. You know what I mean? And somebody being able to address me that way, that I could actually connect with, and that they could call me out on what I believe to be, I played a victim a little bit. You know what I mean? I played a victim. That's reality. You know what I mean? Oh, it's the system. I was dealt this hand of cards. It's my mom's fault because she left me in a trailer for dead. And, it's my dad's fault because I got raised this way. And this is just who I was raised to be. This is it. No, dude. No. But nobody would tell me that. Everybody was afraid to say that. Whether they were afraid, whether they just didn't know, I don't know. But this dude was like, hey, check it out. Did you commit the crime? Okay, shut up. You did it. But the thing is, man, is I don't identify with a soft touch. I never have. It's not something that gets through to me. I need another man in my life to be able to call me out and say, hey, dude, your thought process is really whack. You know what I mean? But there's another way. There is another way, but you got to be willing. And how willing are you is the question. What are you really willing to do to make that work? Are you willing to stop pointing the finger at everybody else and look at your own behaviors and your own actions and the consequences of those things? Okay. Then we got somewhere to go. I think that human connection is key to recovery, to relationships, to our children. Our children need that. And that's why it's so important for somebody like me who grew up with no human connection really other than my father. Not that, he's a good man, he's a Marine, he's a good dude, but he was trapped in his addiction. He was trapped in his alcoholism. He did what he could, but at the end of the day, he died from it. And he also died from it because he was alone. He never had somebody to come to him and tell him, hey, there's a different way and there's a way out. So I think that it's hugely important for us to have that community of people who are sober and, and doing something positive. It doesn't always have to just be a community of people who are sober. You know what I mean? I think that, for me, what I've incorporated into my life and my sobriety is jiu-jitsu. The community in jiu-jitsu is absolutely so much like the recovery community. It's crazy. I never thought in a million years that that's what I was going to get when I entered jiu-jitsu, right? And I had a lot of fear behind it and everything else. Oh man, I'm going to go in there and get beat up all the time. There's a bunch of meatheads, yada, yada, yada. No, man. It's like going to a meeting. You know, it's like going to a meeting. You go through some instructions, you learn some techniques, you get coached, you know, and then you get on that mat. And in that time, when you slap and bump, it's like, nothing's there. It's so quiet. The only thing that matters is survival. And some people might say, that sounds crazy. But it has become one of the places where I go and I get to travel. When I travel for my job, you know, I go to a jiu-jitsu academy wherever I go. You know, everybody's like, yeah, come in, yeah, come on, come train. You know, come learn, come do this, just like a meeting. You know what I mean? Come on, check it out. And it's been one of the things that has added to my recovery. I believe that recovery, in order to continue to grow and build in your life, you know, like we get sober. First year we're sober, second year we're sober, third year we're sober. What happens? People get stagnant. What more are you doing to add to your life? What more are you doing to grow? You mean? And this became a point of where I hit year 13 and I got stagnant. I got depressed. I lost my brother to addiction. So I lost the last family member that I really felt like I had. And I asked myself, why do we do this anymore? And I became depressed. And I stepped away. And, you know, all these things started culminating like it does in recovery. It happens. Just because you're 13 years clean and sober, 10 years, 1 year, however many years, it doesn't mean that you're bulletproof. Nothing matters without work, growth. And I became depressed and I became angry and complacent and not willing to go to a meeting, not willing to call the man who will hold me accountable and all these things. And I asked my son, do you want to try jiu-jitsu with me? And my son said, yeah, I'll do it. My son saying, yes, I'll try it with you, I believe was possibly my saving grace in the beginning of this year because I felt defeated. And I walked in there and he started training and I started training and it was like bam, bam, bam. All of a sudden I'm rejuvenated. I'm ready to go. I'm like, oh, and I gotta call my dude. I gotta call the man who holds me accountable. Hey man, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry I ain't called. I haven't done this and I haven't done that. I need to get honest and I'm miserable. I'm absolutely miserable. Great. Let's do some work. You know? And so, you know, I think that the community that I have and the growth that I have today is, you know, more than I could ever imagine that, you know, I would have as a human being, and thinking at one point in time that I wasn't worth anything. You know? You know, if you look back 13 years ago and you take a look around, right? You're looking around and you're like, okay, this is my life. You know, you're in a brick cell, you got somebody feeding you, you know, you're looking over your shoulder, you're worried about getting high, you're worried about all these different things because that's your world. And to look at the growth in the last 13 years of where I've come. I have been working for a treatment facility for almost 10 years. I've had a job, same company for almost 10 years. What? You know what I mean? A guy who only had 2 jobs his entire life. 2 jobs, both of which I got fired from. You know, I've worked for a treatment center for 10 years almost. I'm married, you know, to a good woman. You know what I mean? To a good woman. I have 2 beautiful children. I struggle. I don't get high. But, you know, I think that what life looks like is imagination. Because my life today is only what I used to imagine my life could be like as a child. the things that I really wanted as a child. You know what I mean? I wanted somebody to love me. And I love myself now. I wanted people to see me for a good person and not for what I really was. But I was a good person all along. I was just struggling from the armor that I wore every day. And I needed to strip that armor away and let myself be vulnerable. I am vulnerable today. I'm not perfect. I never will be, and that's okay. But today, I mean, I couldn't even fathom altogether what life is today. Because life today is today. You know what I mean? Like, I have all these wonderful things and great things and beautiful things and a great job and everything else. None of it matters unless I stay sober today. And so the question is what will I do to stay sober today? And how will I stay sober today? And how will I stay accountable today? And if I can achieve that, then tomorrow I'll have another chance at growth. If you ever think that you're not worth it, if you ever doubt yourself, if you're struggling, whether it's drugs, mental health, family, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you feel like you don't feel the way you want to feel, it's okay. You're not a bad person. You're not defective. You know, like you're not, there's nothing that can't be helped. But at the end of the day, you got to be willing to do something about it. You can't sit in the back of the room, slouched down, asking for help. You got to raise your hand. You got to ask for it. You got to do it. There's so many more things out there. There's so many more people out there that actually care, that do care. You know, I remember being a child and being my third grade teacher was the one teacher that made the impact on me. And she seen me in a sea of children, a child struggling, and she decided to do something about it. You know, I think that if you see yourself struggling and you know you're struggling, tell your family, tell your friends, pick up the phone, call somebody. The phone is not that heavy. I swear to you, it looks it isn't. You use it every day to call the dope dealer, to call everybody else in the world, but that help number, you think it's so heavy, it's not. If you're struggling today, pick up the phone, walk out of your bedroom right now, tell your mother, tell your father, tell your wife, tell anybody, hey, I need help. And that's okay. That takes more strength to reach out and ask for help than to sit there and act like you're a tough guy or you're a tough girl in the back, you know, trying to act all hard. That ain't tough. Walk out there and ask for help today.